Now this will tell us. And that's pretty conclusive. Still going. Close. I think he got it down.
How strong is he?
Welcome back, punters. Thank you for joining us for another week of the Pick and Go Rugby podcast. Time to get stuck into the nitty-gritty because footy season is just around the corner and there's plenty to discuss between now and then. This week, I'm pleased to be joined by Richard Lady in studio. How have you been, mate?
Very good, thank you, Patrick. Good to be back, and can't wait. After last week's episode, it got me really pumped up. So it should be a great season of footy, I reckon.
Yeah, no, looking forward to it. Yeah, I was the same after last week, sort of getting going and starting to chat about a few things. Started to really get fired up for it. And joining us from his palatial estate overlooking Hataitai, Paul Moana. How are you, Paul?
Yep, I'm very, very good. It's good to see you guys in your own little bubble there in the studio, not unlike the Queenstown Bubble.
That long did it.
I'm glad you're moving this podcast along quickly. You got somewhere to be or something, but that is where we're going to start proceedings this week before we get into the team-by-team previews. Obviously, the news broke late yesterday afternoon that all 6 New Zealand-based sides are headed down to Queenstown for the first 3 weeks or so of Super Rugby. Going to be based there, taking the bus ride down to Rugby Park at Invercargill to play some footy on Friday and Saturday nights. Wakatipu Rugby Club hosting the day games because they can't even use John D. Davies Oval in Queenstown due to cricket commitments, I think it is. Richard, what are your thoughts? Do you think they've made the right call, New Zealand Rugby, sending everyone down to Queenstown?
Wow, it's the sort of the really cautious approach, isn't it? You would have thought, like, with the way they were doing it would have probably made more sense to actually have them staying in Invercargill, and then if they wanted to go to Invercargill, to Queenstown for the day games. But I don't know if they would have had as much fun staying in Invercargill as Queenstown. So, I mean, they've done what they've done. This is sort of the world that we're living in. We're getting used to these sort of bubbles and all that. I think, well, we're getting used to them. I think a lot of the players are probably getting pretty sick of it by now. But, prayers for the Queenstown locals. I'm sure there'll be some stories to come out of it all, I think.
No New Zealand Super Rugby teams have ever got into trouble in Queenstown, have they? How about you, Paul?
I don't remember any.
That doesn't rule anything out.
I wonder, does the New Zealand Rugby Union contract an epidemiologist to, like, give them a sort of this is the most likely scenario with COVID or the Omicron variant. It would be best if all teams were based in a bubble, sort of thing. Do they get their advice from scientists, or do they do their own research like Joe Rogan?
Well, I did say there was a quote in the press release yesterday about the move down to Queenstown from Chris Lendrum, where he said something like, hopefully everyone can be back in their home bases in about a month's time based on our modelling, which I thought seemed wildly optimistic. But yeah, I don't want to get into too much of the science here. But yeah, if I was hazarding a guess, I'd imagine they'll be down in Queenstown in that bubble until they go to Melbourne for Super Round. And then, it seems like there's going to be an Australian bubble again for the second half of if I was a betting man. But yeah, just on the Queenstown thing as well, it seems like they've picked, I know there's probably the accommodation there, but it seems like they've picked one of the settlements where it's furthest away from a floodlit rugby ground in the whole country. Like, you compare it to somewhere like Taupō, where it would also have the accommodation. You could have a bubble set up pretty easily, and you've got Owen Delaney Park, you've got Rotorua, Tauranga.
What's the drive? 2 hours?
2.5. Yeah.
And they'll be taking that after the game, I presume. So getting back at midnight, straight to Lone Star.
Yeah, or even you've got to think there'd be some accommodation option near Auckland where you could at least be a bus ride from Mount Smart, Kauai and Eden Park.
Plenty,
yeah, but I'm sure, yes, the Melbourne.
I think Auckland, they probably want to stay away from Auckland because that's probably the most likely place if there is an outbreak.
Is there a casino in Taupō?
But they're in a bubble anyway. They're not going to be just queuing up for Ferg Burger on a Thursday night.
Are they not?
No. That's the whole point. Is keeping them in a bubble.
Uber Eats.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm not. Yeah, like I said, I'm not an epidemiologist, so I don't want to get into it too much. But just thought, aside from the accommodation options, that was an interesting choice. It'd be nice to see, the backdrop of the Remarkables and everything. Some
Beautiful
afternoon footy at Wakatipu Rugby Club though, so got that to look forward to. But I think, we've probably exhausted all avenues there. Might as well get into the nitty gritty.
Does it favour? I mean, it favours the Highlanders, or
No,
Possibly the Crusaders that much.
I think it'll favour the teams that are set up to be in that bubble. You sort of think back to the NBA bubble when they went to Disney World and for the past 2 years ago, and like the Miami Heat were one team that really thrived in that environment because they're a super regimented team. They're used to that routine and strict schedule and everything. Whereas like other teams like the Clippers, who were letting Kawhi Leonard live 2.5 hours away from the team base and things like that, maybe didn't enjoy the bubble environment so much. So you have to think it'll suit those teams that already have good processes and a good schedule in place, and it'll just sort of be business as usual by then. But maybe
Crusaders come to mind.
Yeah, maybe other teams that don't have
it.
such a good internal setup might struggle with the rigors of bubble life. I wouldn't point any fingers in any direction, so you could probably pick any of the other 4 franchises and make a case there. But yeah, I think the Crusaders.
I think it's worse for Moana Pasifika, who being based out of Auckland. I know not all of the squad are from Auckland, but they would be closer to their families. Whereas I'm guessing it's just players that are going down to Queenstown. They're not taking partners or family.
Not at this stage, I don't think.
Right, yeah. So I think unfortunately for them, I think it's worse for them and probably best for the Crusaders.
And I think Moana Pasifika probably were one of the New Zealand franchises that could have expected a legit home field advantage at Mount Smart. I'm not saying it was going to be like Rugby League World Cup levels, but they were going to have a passionate fan base who were excited to see them play. And like New Zealand, it's not the Six Nations out there in most games when you're at a New Zealand Super Rugby game, whereas I think they could have relied on a lot of crowd noise and atmosphere getting behind them in this first campaign. So that's another.
There would have been a good chunk of that red Tongan army from the League World Cup turning up, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it is a real shame that we're not going to get to see that. That first game at Mount Smart against Auckland at the Blues would have been awesome. So yeah, behind closed doors at Rugby Park and Invercargill, not quite the same. But hey, at least we are going to get some footy. So we'll look at the positives for once. But I think unless there's anything else you guys want to add on the bubble, we might as well get stuck into Moana Pasifika because they were one team we didn't really give too much attention to last week on the preview show.
Yeah. They're just it's a great unknown. It's similar to the draw, we don't know what to expect. They've got a couple of big names, who Sikopi Kipu was announced captain yesterday, so he's going to be sort of like a real play that leadership role. I read yesterday that he sort of, when he came back to New Zealand, he wasn't even really expecting to play rugby again, so he's got straight back into it. And I'm excited to sort of see what they can do. There's plenty of excitement in that back line, maybe lacking a bit in the forward pack. But Leon Lefano and McClatchy, it'd be interesting to see what they do with those two. I imagine they'll have to play both of them, probably McClatchy at 10 and Leon Lefano at 12, because he's played a bit of 12 in the past, isn't he?
He has been in the 12. I prefer him in the 10.
Yeah.
But
especially, sorry to cut you off there, Paul, but just with such an inexperienced side at Super Rugby level, like obviously McClatchy was great for Hawke's Bay, but I think you need that calm head of Lealiafano, especially in the early games. Like a lot of these guys are going in pretty cold turkey. Maybe, I think we'll see Lealiafano start at 10 early in the season, and then they can sort of ease McClatchy in. Yeah,
I'm sure McClatchy will get some game time. First of all, probably coming off the bench, but I do see them playing around with him at 10 and Lealiafano at 12. So, look, they've got a smattering of experience in the squad. As you said, Kepu is the captain. And I think I think the sort of, the mana that he brings to the team, I think he'll be able to rally the troops behind him. They just seem to be slightly thin in a number of areas in the forward pack. I'm sure we'll see them play an exciting brand of rugby. The ball will get plenty of air with a certain amount of structure to it as well. It's not going to be 7 style, but I do see them opening things up and giving the ball a bit of air. So it's just, will they get enough quality ball for that back line to sort of show the skills that they have, especially later on in the season as injuries strike. I just don't think they've got the depth that some of the other Super Rugby squads have.
Yeah, and especially I think we sort of talked about with the Drua last week, right? They get the easy road in, few Force, few Rebels, bit of Waratahs sprinkled in early on. We're going straight into 8 games against New Zealand franchises.
Yeah.
Not a ideal way to be starting a new rugby team from scratch. So hopefully they can sort of weather the storm early on, because it's going to be a tough few weeks for them down in Queenstown. And then if they use that experience, and they can maybe make a run for a quarterfinal spot against the once they do get some Australian sides served up to them later on in the season. But is there anyone you had circled, Richard, you think needs to sort of maybe outside of those experienced names that we talked about could step up and be a difference maker for them? Or
I'm excited to see Solomon Kate in the centres. Big Warriors fan. It's always good to see that. He's a strong ball runner. He's similar to that sort of Laumapi, Nani Laumapi build. So it'd be good to see him sort of get out there and just sort of get on the front foot and just give the hopefully give the forwards something to sort of some ball to sort of get behind and secure it. And there's plenty to be excited about in that back line. That Tavitava Nawai, that winger for Tasman, when he got the ball at NPC last year, he was incredible. So I'm really looking forward to sort of seeing what he can do. But I think as Paul said, I think the forwards it's just going to be, they're really lacking some depth in the forwards there, and they might come back to sort of, what New Zealand teams like in the final sort of 10, 15, 20 minutes of the game, might sort of catch up on them. But there is also that kind of the unknown there. There's a lot of people we don't know. So hopefully it'll be a chance for them to sort of put their hand up and show us what they're made of. Yeah,
because I really like what they've done with their sort of selection policy for the most part. They've obviously targeted good performers in the NPC, like a lot of Hawke's Bay names in there, couple of Manawatu players who are really good.
What is it? We're not even half an hour in. Wow.
Well, I'm like, just saying, quite often there's always a chat at the end of season. It seems like it's like, oh, these guys are great. And NPC,
no chance,
how did they not get a Super Rugby contract? So it has provided another avenue here for like even Henry Stowers, who was good for Canterbury. Like they've shopped around as well. They haven't just gone for Auckland and counties players, which you do quite often see. But hopefully there are some of those guys, like the locking department in particular, I think is looking a bit light on, and maybe the loose forwards outside of Jack Lamb. So a few of those guys like Solomone Funaki, who played a pretty limited role for Hawke's Bay off the bench, but has bundles of talent. If he could step into a bigger role, that would be huge for them, I think. Can you see them having enough cattle up front to put up a fight in these early games against the New Zealand sides, Paul, or do you think it'll be just a matter of using that as a learning experience as they get towards the second half of the season?
Yeah, I see them struggling right from the off, to be fair. But look, they do have a number of very, very good players in there. But with any new franchise, it always takes a while for things to get going, unless you're like in the NHL, where you get 20 first-round picks or something if you're the Las Vegas Knights, and it gives you sort of you get already up with the top teams from the off. I'm keen to see how Luteru Tolai goes. He was one of the hookers that popped up last season on the try. He has an uncanny knack of finding the way to the try line. He performed very, very well for Northland. And the other one is the Hawke's Bay outside back, Vicinea. I thought he just got better and better as the season went along last year, and he was a big reason why the Ranfurly Shield's still in Magpie country.
That is true. He was electric. So he's another one. And I'm going to shout out their midfield as well. Levi Amu has been sort of a bulldozer in midfield for Tasman for years now. So hopefully he can get his hands on a bit of ball. And in terms of those younger guys who could take a step forward, Danny Tawala, he was on the Hurricanes books for a couple of years. I think he was a under 20 international for New Zealand. So another guy with plenty of talent. Hopefully him and McClutchy can bring back that connection they had for the Magpies and NPC and take it to the next level, because I think that hopefully, if nothing else, we will see a few of the young guys step up and have star performances. But for you, Richard, what do you think would constitute a successful season for Moana Pasifika? The bookies actually do have them 8th in the outright betting, so by that measure, maybe they're expected to make the quarterfinals. What do you think they should be aiming for from 2022?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the sort of, I mean, who's under them? Force, Rebels, Waratahs, Drua. I think they've got a better squad than probably those 4 teams. I think they'll be aiming for the quarterfinals. Yeah, I mean, and it says it from there. Whether they might have a few hiccups along the way, just with that lack of experience, and that lack of kind of that lack of physicality, sort of. Well, it's not physicality as such, but it's probably just it's the familiar, the names. You know, they just don't have those sort of big names, and they might sort of come out and upset, but they're going to have a pretty tough start to the season. I think they will go probably 0-8. You know, like it'd be hard to see them sort of. So what are they playing?
I think you play 8 games against the New Zealand, so, and not even that. It's the first 3 weeks: Blues, Chiefs, Crusaders. So the top 3.
So they might be able to sneak a win against sort of the Highlanders or the Hurricanes, maybe. But it'll be big as a big outsider. So yeah, I mean, if they make the quarterfinals, that should be their goal, and I'm sure that is their goal. But I think if they don't make it, they won't be too upset. Being the first season.
What would you make their goal for this season, Paul?
I think if they did make the playoffs, it'd be a huge success. I don't think they will make it. I think they're going to be battered and bruised by the end of the New Zealand section of Super Rugby. I think they'll struggle. I'm always very, very keen for getting early runs on the board. And I think the Fijian Drua, with their draw, will have a few runs on the board. And they may be able to build on that. So I'm not saying that I think the Fijian Drua will probably have a more successful season than Moana Pasifika, just because of the start that they will have. I see them picking up a couple of wins early on, as opposed to Moana Pasifika, who I just think are just going to be that sometimes when you get in that sort of a loss after a loss after a loss. They can start building on, and if you're in a bubble and you rather just be at home with your wife or your partner and your kids, where you can just release, they won't be able to do that in the bubble. And I just think this could build and build on it, and it'll be very hard to turn that around. If they do pick up an early win, well, then that all could change. I just don't see that. As you say, they're playing the top 3 teams in the competition to start the season. It's going to be very, very hard for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Another little thing to think about, I suppose, when we're looking at quarterfinal spots, is while they've probably got more talent than the likes of the Rebels or the Waratahs, they have to play on the New Zealand teams twice, where the Australian teams only play them once, and they get to play the so that is a little tick against them. But I hope we see them, even if they do go 0-8. I hope we see a couple of big performances against Australian sides later in the year, and it gives them something to build on for 2023, and hopefully that'll help with recruitment as well. Maybe get a couple more big names coming back from Europe and stuff like that. You just want something like it's a long-term project, right? So yeah, hopefully they've got something to build on for the coming seasons. But we'll move on, because we've still got 5 other teams to preview on this episode. We'll start with the longest odds of any returning New Zealand franchise. The Highlanders, $15 in the outright market, same price as the Brumbies you can get for them currently. Almost double the price of any other existing New Zealand franchise. Actually, the big losses for them coming into the season: Ash Dixon, who's gone to Japan, and Josh Ioane headed up to the Chiefs. Jonah Nareki as well missed the whole season after tearing his ACL in the NPC, but they do get Marty Banks into the fold, which knows Rugby Park well now that that's happened. So that's something. Gareth Evans coming down from the Hurricanes. Mosesi Dawai, who was great for Waikato in the NPC. Andrew Makalio probably filling the hole left by Ash Dixon, and Sam Kidd from the Waratahs, probably amongst their sort of bigger games. Paul, can you explain to me why they're twice the price of the Hurricanes in the outright market, though?
Probably because every single season, without fail, the Hurricanes are one of the best back teams to win the Super Rugby competition. So I'm just thinking possibly because we always take money on the Canes, the bookies have been a wee bit more cautious with the Canes. I also think the Canes are probably a slightly better squad than the Highlanders. And I don't think you can discount or minimise the huge loss that Ash Dixon is to that Highlanders squad. He has been basically the sort of the cornerstone that they build their season round for the last 3 or 4 seasons now. And we saw it with Hawke's Bay. Even though he left halfway through the season, they had, I guess, a progressive sort of scheme in place to take over from him. I'm not so sure the Highlanders do. And so I just think him, plus the fact that Ioane is off to the Chiefs, it just takes a big chunk of experience, especially out of that forward pack. And I see them struggling, unfortunately, as well. Well, against the New Zealand squads, I see them struggling.
Are you seeing from a similar hymn sheet there?
Yeah, I just think the loss of those 2 players is huge. Yeah, everything they did, well, not everything, but you think back to last season, Paul's getting on Ash Dixon as a try scorer every week and was saluting every week. They just they might be able to sort of adjust that game plan to suit sort of Makalea or Coltman. Will Coltman start?
Yeah, I presume Coltman will. But they're both Coltman's played for the All Blacks before.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, they're not bad replacements.
No.
I think it's a culture loss more than anything.
Yeah.
So whether they can withstand that.
You saw what sort of Ash Dixon brought, and then I thought Ioane was he was playing well for the Highlanders last year. Obviously, he had his little indiscretion, but he sort of came back, and when he did come back, he was, he brings a lot on attack for the Highlanders team. Marty Banks, I mean, we love him, but probably doesn't offer as much sort of with the ball in hand. Got a good kicking game, and as you sort of alluded to, he knows his way around Rugby Park, so he might be able to pin a few long penalties and that sort of thing. But with Nariki injured and Parkinson's injured as well. Yeah, he's out for the season as well. I thought he's sort of been building the last couple of years, and he was probably due to have a big season as well. So yeah, I mean, I think that they probably don't deserve to be as big as underdogs as opposed to the Hurricanes, but they're definitely not in that. They're quite far away from that top 3 of the New Zealand teams, I think, and they will struggle against the likes of Crusaders, Blues, and Chiefs.
I'm much more optimistic about the Highlanders than you two.
What is going on? Where is all this optimism coming from? What happened to the? Where is Patrick?
They do have the 2 best halfbacks in the country. I'll give them that. So
they were finally a Super Rugby Trans-Tasman was a Mickey Mouse competition, but they were finalists and came very close to winning that. They went to Christchurch and beat the Crusaders last season. They were probably the 3rd best New Zealand team overall last year, I'd say, when you combine the 2 competitions. Yeah, Ash Dixon's a big culture loss, but I'm not so worried. Josh Ioane was. He had his moments, and it was more when he was playing for Otago last year that he really rounded back into form. For me, a lot's going to ride on Mitch Hunt because he now is very much he's going to be the main man at 10. So he's going to have to consistently produce. But then again, having Aaron Smith and Falau Fakatava inside you certainly helps. Really excited about the few of the young backs as well. Connor Garden-Bishop was flying last year until he got injured. So hopefully he's healthy and he can take another step forward. And then I just think they've got enough strength and depth in the sort of forwards. They've got exciting young guys like Shannon Frizzell's an established All Black at this stage. Marina McKaylee too looked like it was headed to superstardom for Hawke's Bay a couple of years ago. Guys like him or Manaki Selby-Rickett. Josh Dixon is another one who have plenty of potential to step forward. I think they've got that culture. They've had it in place since Jamie Joseph was there, where they just play really good, solid rugby. They don't miss tackles. They make you play out of your own half. They've got an awesome defensive system. I think you can roll guys in and out. Ethan de Groot's another one who came on leaps and bounds last season. So for me, I'd say I'm pro Highlanders in this, and I think
someone's got to be.
Yeah, there'll be.
Carl Tiley has got to you.
No, I'm just I don't know. I just base my decisions on what I see on the rugby field, I guess. But I think they could be very competitive this season, and obviously it's going to be a tough ask to take down certainly the Chiefs and Crusaders. But I think they'll be certainly they should be aiming for a semi-final spot, and I reckon they can be competitive against any of the top teams in a semi-final if they do make it there. But a lot of water to go to the bridge before then, if you want. Should we anything else on the Highlanders, or should we move on to somewhere where I think I might be being a bit more negative?
Well, we're getting on to the Australian teams already.
No, one more New Zealand team to do this week.
Wow, at your peril.
Do you want to lead us off with your thoughts on the Hurricanes for 2022, Paul?
I actually like the look of the squad, but it depends on how they're actually go, where they see their top 15 at this stage. I think, well, obviously, a number of positions pick themselves. Artie will be one of the loose forwards. Dane Coles, I'm guessing, will probably be the number one hooker with Omua coming off the bench. I'm guessing TJ back in the 9 jersey, and I'm hoping that Ruben Love is first cab off the rank for the first 5 position. If you look at the outside backs, obviously Geordie slots into the 15, and then it's a bit of sort of shuffling the deck. Do you start with Rayasi and Hoosen or Xavier? And Umaga Jensen, really hope he gets a fair dinkum go in the midfield. He probably has to, because of what we've lost with Lomapi and Vince Arsel moving on overseas. So overall, the squad doesn't look too bad. Injuries, especially in the tight 5, could derail the season somewhat, but overall, it does look like a very, very good squad that will be, I guess, led by Artie, who basically picks them up at last season. At times, he just picked the Hurricanes up, put them on his shoulder, and he was doing everything: turnover ball, tackles, making busts, setting up tries. He was Mr. Everywhere, just about all the time. So if they can base their game around Artie and feed off his energy, I can see them going well.
Are you as optimistic as you?
I wouldn't say as optimistic, but I'm looking forward to seeing Perenara return and Jamie Booth as well. I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing one halfback return.
Wow.
I just think that sort of 9-10 combination last year was a bit of overshow. They tried so many different combinations and nothing really stuck, and it really showed in their game. So with Perenara, might not be as quick as he once was, but he's wise head, and hopefully, with Ruben Love playing first 5, he'll be able to give him some direction, just give him a bit more time to sort of, because he's an extremely exciting player, and if he can kind of, I don't know, do what we saw glimpses of last year, he could really spark that backline. Yeah, I mean, the backline there's plenty to like about the backline, and it'd be great to see. I mean, Umaga Jensen, he needs to have a look in this year. Last year there was plenty of questions asked by you, Patrick, and we never quite figured out what the story was there. But he was close to being our best All Blacks centre at one point.
The form him and Nani were in that midfield late in the 2020 Super Rugby Aotearoa season. I don't know what happened in the 8 months in between.
So with him, and then obviously Geordie. Hopefully Geordie can. Yeah, I don't know if we've seen the best of Geordie in the Hurricanes jersey, so maybe this is the year that he really steps up. I hope
Fisky's not listening to this.
Let's get that in there. He's great, but I think he definitely performs better in an All Blacks jersey. So hopefully with that back line, if they can gel, get something going. I think the full pack's probably where they're lacking a bit. Obviously, you've got 2 very good.
That's a hot take.
They've obviously got 2 very good hookers, Amoa and Coles. Amoa brings that sort of excitement, and Coles is just that classic sort of mongrel. We all know what Dane Coles is, but
he's a great human. That's what he is.
Yeah, the props and probably the rest of the type 5s, very much lacking. Don Bird's a pretty solid signing. Might just bring a bit of wisdom. Been around a few years now. I liked Alex Fido, who was awesome in the NPC last year, I thought. So it'd be cool to see if he can really bring that form into Super Rugby. And they've obviously got Artie. You know my thoughts on Artie. I said to him last week. He's one of the best players in the world. So if he can kind of, get some support from the rest of his back row. I really liked Devin Flanders last year as well. I'm hoping that he can kind of just cement that spot. Probably, he was playing number 8, wasn't he? And then so
he was brilliant.
Yeah, I thought he was great. So they've got some potential. I just that type 5's a real issue, and it might come back to haunt them.
Yeah, for me the type 5 you look like Blackwell, Don Bird, and Scott Scrafton are all solid Super Rugby locks in their own right. Like they have their good qualities, but none of them would come close to starting for any of the other New Zealand franchises. I don't think. Like they'd be at best the third best lock anywhere else. So while it's good to have the depth there, and 6 through 15, the talents or the loose forward trio. Artie obviously headlines it, but then Karifi, Braden Yose was awesome last season, as well as Devon Flanders. A few really exciting youngsters like Caleb Delaney, TK Howard, and Tyler Lobster. So you'd hope the loose forward trio can go well, and then Perinara, Ruben Love could, in theory, should be an awesome 9-10 combination, both go in the line. I think Tay Walden could play a really important role.
Oh yeah, he was
as a bit of experience in the 12 jersey.
Great signing, actually. Just smart. And
But like, can we have any faith in this? The Hurricanes set up to get the best out of these players after what we've seen the last year. Like they're so reliant on injury. You think back to games last year, and it was all just Artie or Nani or Ruben or someone just doing something great. Like it didn't seem like there was any sort of coherent vision. Like
game against Crusaders, I remember when Artie was ahead of that 5-minute play where he got about 3 turnovers. He ran 80 meters. He did a chip and chase. Like he was It's almost like as that you think back to like the Brooklyn Nets or some of these star-studded basketball teams where it's very much it's your turn, it's my turn. Like beautiful.
I don't know if they have the overall game plan to really put together what is clearly a very talented side. And like we talk about the Highlanders being more than the sum of their parts. They've got this great system. They play really well together as a team. You can sort of swap guys out interchangeably. Certainly don't feel the same way with the Hurricanes. So like despite the names on paper, I think they'll have some great performances. Like they might, especially week 1 without Moana, but like they might give the Crusaders a scare. The last 2 seasons they've won in Christchurch and then should have won that game at the Cape Town on Sunday afternoon last year. But I also think there's going to be a lot of very frustrating performances where things don't click, and it's guys running into 3 defenders and then conceding a breakdown turnover because everyone else was ready to catch the ball instead of clearing out. So I'm not overly optimistic. I'd like that you'd hope they're in the quarterfinals just because 8 teams make the quarterfinals in a 12-team competition. I won't get into that, but like I imagine they're going to be underdogs no matter who they play in the first round of the finals. So
which is exactly where they love to be.
No, for sure. They'll probably put 40 on the Blues or something. But I'm and more than anything, I want to see in particular Ruben Love, Salesi Rayasi, those young loose forwards and front rows we talked about take step forwards and turn into great footballers who are starting to get in the All Black conversation and stuff like that. I think we talked about what make a great season for Moana Pasifika. The Hurricanes, I don't think we can call them realistic title challengers, but Ruben Love in particular, he's the one. Like he's the future of the franchise at 10 with Geordie at 15. If he can turn into a superstar, that could make a world of difference. When Hurricanes fans all know far too well what having or not having a quality 10 can do to a side. So for me, I think they just need to focus on youth development this season. Hope to have a few really good games, and then hopefully come back firing in 2023. But it'll be a wild ride no matter what they do. I'm sure, right?
He is the future, and the future is now.
So positive, Paul. I really admire your outlook on life.
Oh, thanks.
Speaking of positive, do you want to talk about the Waratahs?
Where do you go? Oh boy.
Well, they got Michael Hooper back.
Well, and he is a big plus. To be fair, but crikey. I'm struggling to find any positives, to be fair, outside of that. They were terrible last season. Terrible.
Yeah. Conceded 40 or more points in every Super Rugby Trans-Tasman game. Which
it was entertaining, wasn't it? Because there was a few quite high-scoring games. I'd say just get on the over every Waratahs game, because from last year there was some huge. What was it? The Hurricanes? It was like
65-47 or something, was it?
Really great.
When did they play there? Week 1, Waratahs Fiji Drua Friday night. That's going to be a show.
That'll be a great game.
But I don't think we're expecting anything.
I mean, I looked at that squad and I knew about 3 names. It was just, I think they're really lacking. I mean, Hope is huge. He's one of the best players in the world.
Jeff Cridge and Ned Hannigan, a couple of solid forwards they've brought in who should provide some solidity, I think. And they do have promising young guys. Angus Bell was like clearly one of their more exciting players last season. The halves are both like Jake Gordon made the Wallabies, like that might say more about the Wallabies 9 stocks than him, but like I do think there'll be more. They won't be as clown show like as they were last season, but I'm not expecting them to push for a final spot or anything like that.
$101.
Yes,
The might of New South Wales.
What do you reckon
$101.
the line's going to be against the Drua week 1?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, because I might like
get on the Drua.
Get on the plus and the over, same game multi, and that's gonna. I was watching some highlights from Drua training popped up on my Facebook yesterday. And, oh boy, that was a lot of fun. There's some hot stepping backs out there. I might have to send a link to Fisky after his disrespect last week.
Disrespect. There's some hot stepping forwards in that Drua team.
Yeah, and then we'll get on to all the offloads. But no, before we'll chat a bit more about the Drua next week, since we sort of gave them a decent go last week. But 2 other Australian teams, sort of like the New Zealand teams, we're going to chat about the bottom of the market this week, and then we'll come back next week with probably the 6 or 5 leading title contenders, and sort of get more into them. But just to give the Force and the Rebels their due, neither team, really going to set the heart racing. Force have added Isaac Rodda and Manasa Mata-Ali to a team that was pretty competent last season. They finished 3rd in Super Rugby Australia, and then gave a couple of New Zealand teams a good scare. Kept the Crusaders out of the Super Rugby Trans-Tasman final by getting a bonus point down in Christchurch in the last minute when the Crusaders decided to play without a fullback. That was good fun. So they do lose Domingo Miotti and Thomas Kubeli, as well as Tavita Kuridrani, and I think Domingo Miotti was a big part of that form turnaround though. So yeah, not really sure what to expect. And then obviously the Rebels losing Marika Korobeti, who's gone to Japan, as well as Izzy Naisarani. We'll just group these 2 in together because I don't think we're going to have a lot to say about either. But I'll open it to the floor. So any hot takes on either of these sides from you 2?
Not really. It was similar to what I
no.
had a look through the squads. There wasn't a heap of names that sort of stepped out. Yeah, the Force was sort of better than expected last year, weren't they? So I think if anyone was probably gonna, those losses are big though. Like Miotti was he was huge last year actually. They were sort of based all their attack around him, and obviously Kuridrani's an absolute freak. So not having him there, it's good to see they've still got Jeremy Thrush and Richard Kahui on the books.
As long as Thrush has kept that moustache from last season, I'll be happy, because that was probably the most exciting thing about watching a lot of Force games.
Yeah, it was glorious. I think if either team were going to make a surprise push for the quarterfinals, I'd probably side with the Rebels. They probably just got a little bit more depth in their squad, but I'd say that with not a heap of confidence. Neither team got a win against the New Zealand teams last year. Neither team got close.
No, it was only the
Reds
Reds and the Brumbies, and they were both in Australia.
Not too much to
pretty much summed up. We'll get our official quarterfinal picks next week, but yeah, it is that sort of, I think you probably pencil in the 5 New Zealand franchises and the Reds and Brumbies to 7 quarterfinal, and then it is probably between these 2 teams, the Drua and Moana Pasifika, for the last one. So it is up for grabs. But neither side has really done anything. I think they've both got the same head coaches from last year, so I can't expect to wholesale changes of style of play. The Rebels are yet to play in a meaningful game in the history of their franchise.
I see they've only got one first 5 named, Carter Gordon. So if he goes down, is it someone like a Matt To'omua who jumps into the 10 jersey?
You'd have to think so, right? To'omua can play 10. He's probably and Reece Hodge. They've almost got 2 guys who aren't really 10s but can play there. So
because Hodge is under the mid outside back, and To'omua's in the
Stacey Ely was all right for Hawke's Bay last year. Hopefully he can do some things. But looking through that,
young Turamapia, he used to play for the Storm, didn't he?
He did, yeah. No, need to get back to their.
They have Andrew Callaway as well. Andrew Callaway was one of the one of the.
He read lightning.
Yeah, he did very little on a lot of some impressive backline moves as far as I'm concerned. But like I said,
good finisher.
Yeah, sure. All right, that's I think ties us up for the first half of our team by team previews. We'll be back next week for the real good stuff: Crusaders, Blues, Chiefs, Reds and Brumbies. So we'll get a bit more stuck into the real title challenges next week. Tune back in for that. But before we go, Six Nations kicking off on Sunday morning New Zealand time. So there's some actual football to look forward to this weekend. Should be a pretty exciting tournament. France, no surprises, $2.50 favourites to win the thing, and then you got England and Ireland sharing the second line of betting at $3.75. England going to be without Owen Farrell for the whole tournament, which is a big loss for them.
All right, no Tui Langi this weekend either.
Oh yeah, we'll get to these this week.
Right,
they're missing a bunch of guys this week. But any of you guys being against France in the outright market?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, they're France, so you can. And I like Ireland. I like Ireland.
Uh-huh.
I love the look of the squad. Farrell will be there for them. They've showed against the All Blacks. They are a very, very good side. And I think their 3 home games are again, they got Wales, Scotland, and Italy. So those are almost, I'm not going to say gimmies, but there's points on the board already. They only have to
go to Paris and London.
Correct. They only have to pick one win up from there, I think, to win the Six Nations. So I think, once again, get the runs on the board. And I think they will. I think you take Ireland this week and you take the minus as well. I think they'll be way, way too good.
Okay. Yeah.
I just really like the look. I really do like the look of the Irish.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. But for me, I don't know about you, Richard. Are you Team France or Team Ireland?
Team Ireland as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take. So what are they? $3.75. Yeah, and I'd be happy to take that. And yeah, France at $2.50 is pretty yuck. I just can't. I know they're good, but they are France.
Yeah,
they've got a pretty good halfback, France, but
and they've got their top first 5 back who missed all the last Six Nations. They play both England and Ireland at home. I think for me, it's all about next week. So Ireland and France both huge favourites this week for home games. Then Ireland go to Paris next week.
Perfect.
What is going to be an awesome game. Talk about getting fired up to watch some rugby. It's a pretty good time for New Zealand as well. But yeah, I'll be up with the coffee watching that one. So that's one I've got to, because we'll get onto England's injury woes when we talk about the Calcutta Cup this week. But I think England are going to really struggle without with so many key players missing. But as you said, Paul, Ireland 14.5-point favourites home to Wales this week. Wales, I think England have got it bad injury wise. Faletau, Alan Wynne-Jones, Topurik, Lee Halfpenny all out for the whole tournament, I think, if not most of it. Like, they've just been absolutely decimated. So you think Ireland just run all over them in Dublin?
I think they do. Yes, I do. This could be a bloodbath, unfortunately, for the Welsh. As you say, I don't think they have the depth behind them to be able to replace those players who are out. There's a whole chunk of experience and a whole chunk of, I guess, really, really good rugby players who won't be available for them this season. So I just think the Irish, who are just going from, I see them tailing off next season, World Cup season, but I do like the look of them right now. And as you say, week 2 where they head to Paris to take on the French, that'll be a huge game. If they can pick that up, you might as well just hand them the trophy.
Yes, if they can win in Paris. Easier said than done.
As we found out November last year.
Just wait till Bruno Intermac and DePonte just running absolutely rampant. But you don't mind the 14.5-point line this week? Is that scared you off back in the Irish?
A little bit, but I think I'll probably take it. I did see it with those names out for Wales. We saw when the All Blacks sort of played Wales last year, and they were missing all those big names. They just I think they got a bit closer than it should have been, but we still put a number on them. So it's not quite the extent of how many big names out, but yeah, Ireland, I really liked what I saw from them in the end of year tour last year. Played great sort of brand of footy, aggressive, up front on your face, and I'll take the minus in that game.
Yeah, it's about where I
think the Lions probably right there. Yeah,
Ireland just while they do play also like this, the line speed is ridiculous. They don't run in points in the truckloads, I'd say. So I could see it sort of a really dominant 24-10 win, sort of where like Wales never look like scoring more than one try, but Ireland don't exactly put their foot on the throat. So yeah, but then again, I could see them just running all over them in the second half if Ireland do have the. I think James Lowe's out though, so that's obviously a minus. But they'll dominate Wales. Maybe look at I don't know if we've got the market up right now, but once totals are up, Wales team under whatever that is, because I feel like they might score 6 points, sort of thing.
Because Wales did win when they played last year, didn't they?
Yeah,
21-16. That part like year before was 32-9. Ireland won 4 in a row. So
interesting. Like they've played a lot recently, but only one of those was in Six Nations because they played 2 World Cup warm-up games and then in that Autumn Nations Cup.
Oh yeah.
But, we'll move on because I think the match of the rounds actually at Murrayfield later on Sunday morning, 5:45 a.m. kickoff New Zealand time. England, despite all the injuries we sort of touched on, no Tuolangi, Courtney Laws, Joe Marchant, Owen Farrell obviously out for the whole tournament, Joe Marler as well as under an injury cloud here, but they're still $1.60 favourites as they head to Murrayfield to take on Scotland. And they've actually only won one of the last 4 games in the Calcutta Cup series. So, whereas usually this was just, England didn't even bother bringing the trophy up north with them to maybe hand over. It's been, Scotland have had a pretty good time of it against England. Do you have a stronger lean on this game, Paul?
It's certainly there for the taking for the Scots, being at Murrayfield and with an English side down on their big stars. I mean, that midfield of Tuilangi and Farrell, that's a huge loss. I mean, so they lose all that from there. Does that mean they go with Ben Youngs at halfback instead of the exciting young Bristol fella, Randall?
Yeah, I think Randall and Smith would be a big risk in a full Murrayfield early on.
I guess Eddie Jones.
Slade's going to play 12, which I don't love.
So is Slade definitely going to play 12?
That's what it sounds like, but yeah, like who knows?
Not Atkinson.
Yeah, like
who's sort of he's in the Tuilangi mould.
Maybe now with Marchant being ruled out as well, they'll go with Atkinson. But yeah, I do think that the midfield is going to be the real area of concern because Scotland do have a lot of talent in the backs and they'll target that area, and especially defensively if it's a new combination. And Marcus Smith, obviously incredibly exciting talent. He's not Artie Severe defensively in the 10 channel there, so he's another it gives you a pretty decent area to target there if you are Scotland. You leaning one way or another here, Richard?
I'd probably go with Scotland. I think they've obviously had a bit of them recently, and they had a pretty good end of year season. They beat Australia and sort of weren't unlucky, but they put up a good fight against South Africa and all that. So and then they beat Japan. So definitely they've done sort of enough for me to think with England with all those outs. I think that at Murrayfield, happy to take the plus in that one. What is the one?
It's only 2.5.
Oh, 2.5. Yeah, no, but I'll back that. I think that they'll with England with those outs, I think it'll just be a bit much for them, and never an easy task. Mind you, I could see them winning by 20. So,
you taking the underdogs as well, Paul?
Yeah, I am. I'm taking them plus the points. I think them getting 2.5 points at home. I'm very, very happy to jump on that. I can see them coming away with the victory, but I just like that little bit of insurance as well. So Scotland plus 2.5 at $1.92, I do like.
Right. Yeah, I might just go the other way. I think here, don't have a strong line, but I must think it might be a good thing. Not like obviously you don't want to have guys injured, but just to have Marcus Smith and Freddie Stewart are 2 of the most exciting young talents in world football. Could just have it almost being forced to give them a bit extra.
Could go one way or the other.
Yeah. Extra of a role early on, whereas they might have played it a bit more conservatively and just played the usual English game where you kick for the corners. If this does turn into a bit of a shootout, which I think Scotland will want it to because their strength is in the back line, I do the talent England have in the backs as well could could work out all right. And yeah, I just think later on up front, England certainly have the better depth in the forwards. If it is close, they should be able to roll over the top of them later on. So yeah, I'll take the -2.5. It's that 3 is a key number though, so wouldn't want a +3.5 in a game that is traditionally pretty close.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll take -2.5, but yeah, we won't go into it too in depth because it's Italy and they don't play competitive games. But my bet of the week is just take France -35.5 in the last game because Italy. You think the Waratahs are bad defensively? Watch Italy play.
They took it to the All Blacks for 20 minutes last year.
Yeah.
Nah, I think you're right there. Yeah.
What sort of red wine do we think the All Blacks had with their lunch before that game?
Nice bottle of Pinot.
Oh, bit of Chianti. Good. On that note, I think we should probably. Yeah. Any last words from you, Paul, before we let you go?
No, just I can't wait for the season. I hope the bubble goes well for all the teams involved down in Queenstown. And I hope everyone gets through the season with not too many serious injuries.
Of course.
And everyone finds a winner or two.
That'd be very nice.
Very hard these days.
Yeah, for sure. No, we'll. One last note. Just if you are going to have a bet on the Six Nations this weekend or anything else, actually, got a little bonus for the loyal listeners of the Pick and Go podcast.
What?
If you go to the deposit section on the TAB website, you'll see the promo code box pop up at the top of the page. Just in there, type in Pick and Go, all one word, PICKANDGO, and enter that in there. You'll get a $10 bonus bet to use on the rugby or anything else this weekend just to get you warmed up for Super Rugby season. So yeah, get stuck into that, listeners. I think the offer's eligible for the first X amount of people until midnight on Saturday, so just before kickoff in the first Six Nations game. So
spend it wisely, Boa.
Absolutely. So yeah, maybe multi up Ireland minus into France minus or something, but yeah, not that I'd make any official advice for our listeners. But yeah, we're back next week to talk about all the key contenders for Super Rugby Pacific, preview what should be a huge game in the Six Nations between Ireland and France, and probably chat a bit more nonsense as well, knowing us. Hopefully talk to you all again next week. Cheers for joining us, fellas.
Thanks for having us.
Enjoy the rugby this weekend, punters.